Claire Henderson never expected her quiet evening to change anything in her life. The rain outside had been steady since early afternoon, tapping softly on the windows of her small Portland home. She had wrapped herself in a blanket, made a cup of herbal tea, and told herself the storm would pass just like every storm before it. Her routine was predictable, safe, and a little lonely, but she had learned to live with it after her divorce. She had built a life that didn't ask for too much and didn't surprise her. But that was before the doorbell rang. When she opened the door, Ethan stood there older than she remembered, soaked from the rain and carrying a calm confidence she didn't expect. She hadn't seen him in nearly a year. The last time they spoke, he was leaving for Seattle for a new job, promising he would check in. But life had pulled them both in different directions, and silence had grown between them without either saying a word. Now he was back, standing on her porch, as if the universe had decided she needed one more unexpected twist before winter arrived. "Hey, Claire," he said with a soft smile. His voice was deeper, steadier. "Thought I'd check on you. You always hated storms." The sentence was simple, but it hit her hard in a way she didn't expect. He remembered. Even after months apart, even after the divorce from his father had put a strange, invisible distance between them. Ethan had never been her son. He had come into her life already grown, already forming his own path. But he had been a part of her home, her family, her history. Seeing him again felt like opening a book she thought she had already finished. She stepped aside to let him in. The moment he walked through the doorway, the house changed. It felt warmer, fuller, as if some missing piece had quietly returned to its place. Ethan shook the rain from his jacket, ran a hand through his damp hair, and looked around as if he was remembering every corner of the home. Claire watched him, trying to understand why she felt something shift inside her. They sat in the living room, the soft golden lamplight wrapping around them like a gentle memory. The conversation began lightly: work, weather, small updates, but it moved quickly, as if a current beneath their words kept pushing them deeper. Ethan talked about Seattle, how busy life had become, how he often felt like he was trying to run faster than time. Claire shared small pieces of her own life, careful not to spill too much. But he listened with a focus that made her forget she was supposed to protect herself. He looked different. Not just older, but more grounded. There was calmness in him she didn't remember from before. His eyes held stories he hadn't told yet. And Claire caught herself wanting to hear them. At one point, the thunder growled outside. And Claire flinched, the same old instinct she always had during storms. Ethan noticed instantly. "You still get jumpy," he said softly. His eyes warm with concern. She tried to smile it off. But something about the way he said it made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. Not judged, not pitied, simply understood. Their talk carried on for hours, slipping from topic to topic with surprising ease. It felt natural. Too natural, maybe. Claire tried to ignore the thought. She told herself it was only emotion-old familiarity mixing with new comfort. Nothing more. She reminded herself that he had been part of her past life, a life she had closed carefully after the divorce. But as the minutes passed, something subtle but undeniable grew in the quiet space between them. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. It wasn't anything improper or confusing. It was simply recognition. To people who had once shared a home, now seeing each other as individuals for the first time without old roles holding them in place. The rain finally slowed. Ethan stood to leave, and Claire walked him to the door. A soft, calm silence surrounded them. He hesitated, his hand lightly gripping the strap of his bag. And when he looked at her, there was something honest and unguarded in his expression. "I'm really glad I came by," he said. "I didn't realize how much I missed talking to you." The words warmed her more than the fireplace had. She didn't know what to say. She nodded, trying to keep her emotions steady. "I'm glad you came too." He opened the door, but he didn't step out immediately. His eyes lingered, gentle, searching, thoughtful. Not inappropriate, not intense, but different. A difference she felt but couldn't name. It wasn't about attraction. Not yet. It was something quieter and more complicated. Something like a question neither of them knew how to answer. She watched him walk into the soft drizzle and disappear into the fading night. When she closed the door, the house felt strangely empty again, as if something important had slipped out with him. She leaned against the door, exhaling slowly. She didn't know what was happening. She only knew her heart felt strange awake in a way she hadn't felt since long before her divorce. Not because of love, not because of forbidden emotions, simply because she had shared a moment with someone who saw her clearly. Without the noise of the past, Claire knew she should brush it off as nostalgia. But something deeper whispered that tonight was not about nostalgia at all. It was the beginning of something she couldn't predict, maybe couldn't even control. The storm outside faded into a gentle mist. But inside her, a different storm had quietly begun. Claire didn't expect to see Ethan again so soon. After his visit, she tried to settle back into her routine's work, evening walks, quiet dinners, but every part of her week felt slightly out of rhythm, as if one unexpected moment had changed the tone of her whole life. She told herself not to think about that night. He had simply stopped by to check on her. Nothing unusual, nothing emotional, nothing worth overthinking. But her heart had a way of remembering things long after her mind tried to forget them. 2 weeks later, she found herself sitting inside a small cafe downtown. The kind of place where people worked quietly on laptops and soft music floated around like warm air. She came there often after work, hoping the calm environment would help her relax. She brought a book with her that day, something light and comforting, but she wasn't really reading. She was trying to fill the silence inside her, the one she hadn't felt before Ethan's visit. She was halfway through her coffee when the door opened with a familiar chime, and she looked up by pure instinct. Ethan walked in, shaking off the cold air, scanning the room like he was searching for something. His eyes landed on her, and a smile spread across his face, small, surprised, and genuinely happy. Claire felt her breath catch for a second. Reaction was immediate and quiet, like someone had tapped her heart from the inside. He walked over to her table. "Claire, didn't expect to see you here?" "I didn't expect to see you either," she said, trying to sound calm, though she felt a strange warmth rising in her chest. "Mind if I sit?" He asked that. She hesitated for only a second before nodding. "Of course, sit." The moment he joined her, the cafe felt different. The air seemed lighter, the noise softer, the space between them smaller. They started talking casually at first work. Whether how strange it was to run into each other in a city big enough to avoid coincidences. But soon the conversation shifted. Not intentionally, not with effort. It simply happened like a natural current pulling them both in. Ethan talked about Seattle. How fast life moved there, how he often felt like he was living inside a rushing river. He told her he missed slower days, the ones where he could breathe, without feeling like he was wasting time. Claire listened, not out of obligation, but with genuine interest. She hadn't seen this side of him before. He wasn't the young man she once knew through the lens of her marriage. He was someone older, now still gentle, but carrying more depth. More honesty. Claire shared parts of her life too, how her job had become a steady routine, how divorce had changed her sense of identity, how she sometimes felt like she was watching her own life from a distance instead of actually living it. She didn't usually open up this quickly, but with Ethan it felt oddly safe. There was something calming about his attention. He listened without interrupting, without trying to solve her problems, without making her feel judged. At one point she said quietly, "I'm trying to build something new, but sometimes I don't know where to start." He looked at her with a softness that surprised her. "You don't have to know. Just take one step at a time. You've always been stronger than you think." The words touched her deeply. It's not romantically, just human to human, heart to heart. She hadn't heard something supportive like that in a long time. The people in her life often kept conversations on the surface, careful not to bring up anything emotional. Ethan wasn't like that. He wasn't afraid of real feelings, real thoughts. Their hands brushed when she reached for her cup. It was accidental, but the moment stretched for a heartbeat longer than expected. Neither of them rushed to pull away. The touch was small, harmless, but Claire felt something shift inside her once again. She wasn't sure what it meant. She didn't want to label it. She didn't want to run from it either. They talked for nearly 2 hours before either of them noticed how late it had become. When they stepped outside, the air was cold but refreshing. Claire felt a little lighter, as if she had left some of her heaviness behind inside the cafe. "I'm glad we ran into each other," Ethan said as they walked toward their cars. "I didn't realize how much I missed talking to you." Smiled, the kind of smile that came from somewhere honest. "I miss talking to you, too." He paused before getting into his car. "Would it be okay if I checked on you again sometime? Or maybe grabbed coffee?" She hesitated, not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't know what this was turning into. Still, she nodded. "Yes, I'd like that." When he drove away, Claire stood there for a moment, breathing in the cold air. Something was happening. She felt it clearly now. She wasn't imagining the shift between them. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was soft, careful, and somehow more powerful because of its gentleness. As she drove home, she tried to make sense of her emotions. She cared for Ethan not in a complicated way, not in a way that broke boundaries or created secrets. It was simply that he brought comfort into her life, a kind of comfort she didn't realize she had been missing. They were two adults who once shared a family connection that no longer defined them. What existed now was something new and written and uncertain, but even with all the uncertainty, Claire felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope for connection, hope for understanding. Hope for something meaningful to bloom in the quiet places of her life. Still, a part of her tried to stay cautious. She didn't want her heart to run ahead of her mind. She didn't want to misinterpret kindness for something more. She reminded herself that sometimes people simply reconnect as friends, nothing more. But deep down, she knew that what she felt wasn't simply nostalgia or familiarity. It was something new, something she tried to ignore but couldn't fully deny. As she reached home, she paused at the door, remembering the way Ethan looked at her in the cafe, steady, warm, respectful, strangely protective. She didn't know where any of this would lead. All she knew was that she sensed a shift, and she wasn't sure if stepping back now would protect her heart or break something quietly growing inside her. Winter came slowly that year, settling over Portland with soft gray skies and quiet mornings. Claire felt the season in her bones, but she also felt something else, something warm and unsettling, something she didn't have a name for but couldn't ignore. Ethan had become a part of her days again, not in a planned way, but in a gentle, steady pattern that made his presence feel natural. He would show up with coffee, or help her carry groceries, or stop by just to talk. None of it was dramatic. None of it crossed any lines. But every moment left a small mark on her heart. The truth she tried to ignore was simple. Her life felt less lonely with him in it. One evening, the cold was sharp enough to sting when she stepped outside. She had just finished work and was planning to warm up by the fireplace when she heard a knock on her door. She opened it, and there was Ethan holding a small bag and smiling with that familiar, gentle expression. "Thought you might want dinner," he said. "You told me you skipped lunch today." She blinked, caught between surprise and gratitude. "You didn't have to do that, I know," he said softly. "I wanted to." They moved to the fireplace, where the glow of the flames filled the room with amber light. The warmth felt heavier tonight, as if the room itself sensed something was shifting between them. Claire could feel it too, the quiet tension that wasn't uncomfortable, just new. As they ate, they talked about simple things at first: work, the colder weather, his projects in Seattle. He told her about a coworker who kept burning microwave popcorn, and she laughed harder than she had in weeks. That laugh felt good, like air she hadn't breathed in a long time. But the conversation eventually drifted to deeper things, as it often did. Ethan had a way of guiding conversations into honest places, not because he was trying, but because he cared. "You seem tired lately," he said gently. "Is everything okay?" Claire hesitated. She didn't want to open the door to emotions she wasn't sure she could control, but Ethan's voice made it hard to hide. "I'm trying," she said. "Some days are better than others. I just feel stuck sometimes." He watched her with a quiet understanding that went beyond sympathy. "You don't have to pretend you're fine. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to need people." She looked at him carefully. "I'm not used to needing anyone anymore." "I know," he said, "but that doesn't mean you should stop yourself from letting someone in." Claire's heart tightened. She didn't know how to answer, so she looked away, hoping the fire would distract her. But she could feel his eyes on her, warm, steady, not demanding anything. Just waiting. After a moment, Ethan shifted closer. Not too close, but enough for her to feel his presence. "Claire," he said quietly, "there's something I want to tell you." Her breath caught. She knew this moment was coming. She didn't know what he would say, but she felt the weight of his voice. "You keep trying not to see it," Ethan said softly. "But I can't pretend anymore. I care about you. A lot more than I expected to." The words hung in the air. Soft but heavy, truthful but gentle. Claire felt a rush of heat in her chest. Not shock, not fear, but something deeper. Something she had been trying to push away for weeks. "Ethan, you and I?" Her voice felt thin, tangled. "This is complicated." "I know," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "But not in a wrong way. Not in a way that hurts anyone. I'm not your stepson anymore. There's no rule we're breaking. We're just two people who care about each other." She swallowed, unsure of her own voice. "Even if that's true, it still feels like something we should be careful about." "I'm not asking for anything," Ethan said. "Not a relationship, not a promise, just honesty. I want you to know that you matter to me." Claire stood up abruptly, needing space, needing air. She walked toward the window where the winter night pressed against the glass like a cold breath. She didn't cry, but her emotions felt heavy enough to break something inside her. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I'm scared. I don't trust myself. I don't know what I'm feeling." Ethan stood slowly behind her, giving her distance. "I'm not here to make this harder for you. This makes you uncomfortable. If you need me to go, I will. I'll disappear. I don't ever want to be the reason you feel confused or guilty." The word disappear hit her like a small but sharp cut. She turned around, her voice unsteady. "I don't want you to disappear." He nodded gently. "Then just tell me honestly, are you scared of what you feel, or scared of what other people would think?" "I don't know," she said truthfully. Ethan stepped closer, still gentle, still careful. "We can take this slow. You don't have to figure it out tonight. I just needed you to know the truth." She nodded, unable to form any more words. Her throat felt tight, her heart even tighter. She wanted to run, but she also wanted to take one small step toward him, just to see how it felt. Instead, she sat back down near the fireplace. And Ethan joined her on the opposite side of the rug. They stayed there in silence, the crackling, flames filling the room with soft sound. It was an awkward silence. It was full of the things they didn't know how to say yet. After a while, Ethan stood. "I should go, but only if you're okay." Claire looked at him, her eyes unsure. "Just need time to think." "Take all the time you need," he said. He walked to the door. Claire felt something inside her pull. She didn't stop him, but she watched him leave, feeling both relieved and unsettled. The door shut quietly. The room felt too still. Her heart felt too loud. She realized then that she couldn't hide from the truth anymore. She cared to. She just didn't know what to do with that feeling. And the scariest part was that she didn't want the feeling to go away. Spring arrived quietly, melting the winter cold and softening the world around Claire. But inside her, things were anything but soft. Her heart felt tangled, stretched between fear and hope, every emotion louder than the one before. Ethan had left that night in winter without pushing, without demanding anything, but his words stayed in her mind. They came back every time the house got too quiet or every time she let herself feel a moment of peace. She tried to distract her self-work. Walks, cooking, even small weekend trips to nearby towns, but nothing pushed away the memory of the way he looked at her, the honesty in his voice, the way he said he cared without expecting anything in return. That kind of sincerity was rare in her life. It was impossible to ignore then. One cool morning in early spring, it appeared again. Claire had just stepped outside to check the mail when she saw him walking up the path with 2 cups of coffee. He looked calm, but there was something thoughtful in his expression, as if he was carrying news he wasn't sure how to deliver. "Morning," Ethan said, lifting one of the cups. "I figured you probably forgot breakfast again." She took the cup, smiling despite the heavy feeling in her chest. "I didn't forget. I just wasn't hungry yet." "Still counts as forgetting," he said gently. They went inside, settling into the living room where the light filtered through soft curtains. The air between them felt different, comfortable, but charged with all the things they hadn't talked about since that night. Claire waited for him to explain why he came unannounced. "And it didn't take long. My dad called last night," Ethan said, watching her carefully. Her stomach tightened. She hadn't spoken to her ex-husband in over a year. "It's everything." "Okay. He's getting remarried," Ethan said, "in a few months." She blinked, surprised but not hurt. She had let go of that relationship long before the divorce was official. Still, hearing the news made her feel something, maybe closure, maybe release. "Wow," she said softly, "that's fast." "Yeah," Ethan said, "but he seems happy. And honestly, I'm glad he's moving on." She nodded, unsure where this was going. Then Ethan added, "You can move on too." You know, the words hit her harder than she expected. Not because they were unkind, but because they were true. She had spent so much of the past 2 years trying to protect herself from feeling anything new. She had been afraid that opening her heart again would break her all over. But the truth was simple. She had already opened her heart without meaning to. "Ethan," she said softly, "moving on is harder for me. It takes time." "I know," he replied, "not asking you to rush. Just don't want you to keep living in the past when there's so much future waiting for you." His voice was warm, steady, patient. That patience was the part that always caught her off guard. He didn't push. He didn't question her fears. He didn't tell her what she should feel. He simply stood there, offering space and understanding. Claire looked at him, really looked at him. The young man she once knew was gone. In his place stood someone kinder, stronger, more grounded. Someone who saw her in ways she struggled to see herself. "Why are you being so good to me?" she whispered. Ethan smiled slightly. "Because you deserve good, and because I care. More than I probably should." Her breath shook. She didn't step back this time. She didn't run from the truth rising in her chest. She let herself feel it, care, connection, fear, hope, all mixed together. He sat beside her on the couch, leaving a respectful distance, but close enough that she felt the warmth of his presence. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was full and alive, like a space waiting for a choice to be made. "Claire," he said gently, "you don't have to decide anything right now. If this is too much, if you just want friendship, I'll respect that. If you want distance, I'll give it. But if you want to explore this, whatever this is, I'm here." His voice didn't shake. His eyes held no pressure. It's only honesty. All winter, Claire had been afraid of this moment. Afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of hurting him, afraid of hurting herself. But now, sitting beside him, watching the way he waited for her answer with quiet patience, she felt something shift inside her. Not fear, not confusion, something. Softer, something like trust. She took a slow breath. "I don't want to push you away, but I also don't want to rush into something I'm not ready for." "You don't have to rush," Ethan said. "We'll go at your pace, even if your pace is slow." She smiled at that, a small, grateful smile. "You really are different now." "I had to grow up," he said simply. Life made me. Life made me scared, she replied. Ethan shook his head gently. Life didn't make you scared. Life made you careful. There's nothing wrong with that. His words warmed her more than the coffee in her hands. She looked at his hand resting on the couch, open, relaxed, waiting but not reaching. She felt a small, brave spark flicker inside her chest. For months she had been walking around with fear tied to her heartbeat. But now she realized she didn't want to live that way anymore, slowly. With a breath she didn't know she was holding, she placed her hand over his. It was a quiet gesture, a simple one. But it felt like the beginning of a new chapter. Ethan's. Fingers curled gently around hers, not tight, not urgent, just warm and steady, like a promise without words. Are you okay? He asked softly. Yes, Claire whispered. For the first time in a long time, I think I am. They sat together, hands resting between them, no rush, no confusion. Just two adults choosing to face whatever came next with honesty and patience. Outside, the spring sun warmed the earth. Inside, Claire felt something inside her thaw that she thought had been frozen forever. Ethan wasn't her past. He wasn't a reminder of old mistakes. He was simply someone who cared. And she cared too, not in a way she needed to hide. Not in guilt, but in the clean, simple way people care when life finally gives them space to breathe again. For the first time in years, Claire allowed herself to believe in something hopeful, something gentle, something new. And she realized that moving on didn't always mean letting go. Sometimes it meant letting someone in.